raining like that, I'm mad we're going to run for the hills.
Yeah, hopefully the...
Where'd you find this comfortable chair?
I brought it from my patio.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Thank you.
All right, we're our archaeologists.
Yeah.
Now, do you think there were pillars here out front on the... Do you really think that?
That there were...
On the front instead of that porch, there were pillars?
We think there were a variety of different porch treatments. They seem to have found a doorway on the second level. The center middle window appears to have originally been a window that you could walk out.
Oh,
It either
upstairs?
as a small balcony.
Oh, really? Oh, my word.
Yeah, they removed some bricks and things last week and just discovered evidence for
Good
a second
heavens.
store balcony. The width and stuff still hasn't been determined, but yeah, that was surprising, especially if it's a period one feature, because porches in general are rare in two-story porches.
So are they going to put that back?
Well, that's what we're in the process of doing, is going through all the periods of layers of evidence and trying to see what
You will do and what you won't
what
do.
we will, yes,
Yeah.
what the where the evidence guides us.
Yeah.
It has to be dated, you know, like so much of the great interior is from the 1760s. So we're still trying to figure out what the porch situation was in the 1760s versus later.
Right.
Yeah, actually I have some questions for you about, you know, the porches and how they changed.
I'm sitting right on top of the well, and I remember getting water out of here.
And how did you get water out of there?
It was a bucket type thing that we wound down.
Wow, so it wasn't a mechanical thing, it was a bucket.
Not originally, no.
Yeah, I
about
think this
that?
is, you showed me a picture of it.
Yeah,
Is that the one?
Well, that was later.
Okay, so
Yeah,
this one,
that's later.
so that one's later.
Yeah.
So then the original one,
This was open, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
How far down do you figure it was?
Ooh, I don't remember that. No.
But you looked over and all you saw was dark, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yes, so this was the original,
Yeah.
the way it was?
I would say yes. Yeah, I remember that trough. That's where they put water in for the animals. Yeah.
Yeah, so this was the original. Yeah, I was trying to figure out, I was looking at that lovely picture of you as a young girl with the outbuildings.
Down here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How old were you in that
I
photograph?
think I was 3 or 4. Yeah.
And do you mind telling me what year you were born?
1927.
1927. Years of age 3 or 4.
I'll be 91 in August.
Oh, God bless you. And I guess one of the questions I had was, we discussed this before, the outbuildings.
Chicken house.
This was the chicken house.
And this is a chicken house. This we called a meat house. That's where we hung the hams and everything. This was the garage right there. And the outhouse was in back of me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now, we always had a bathroom when I was here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was left over from before?
Well, actually, the blacks used it. Because, see, the blacks lived up there.
So the servants lived over the brick section?
Right here, where the kitchen is, above the kitchen. There are 3 rooms up there.
So do you remember how many servants?
Oh, my Lord. No. There were men and women, and the men had their room and the women had their room. And then there was like one room, a common room, I guess you would call it, where they would sit together.
I think we're going to, if you don't mind, start off. The archaeologists, as you can see, have been doing a lot of digging out here, and they're hoping that maybe you can have some recollection on the other outbuildings and the landscape and, you know, the trees. I know that in some of the early photos there's a lot more trees and vegetation and gardens that came down.
Yeah, a lot of shrubbery out front, a lot of big trees.
Great. So
I think I gave you that picture of the house with the trees on each side.
yes.
Yeah. Thursday, and he
Oh,
was
were you?
working on it.
Yeah, it was a very
Yeah.
informative week. So I'd like to introduce Jason Tyler. He's our
Hi there.
archaeologist, and
How are you?
Oh, great, nice, very nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing your memories on this.
Well, so far it's there.
That's good to know. So we ended up digging all behind here. And you saw the old building, the old kitchen, which, did you get to see this? We found foundations of the old kitchen, which is under this
Okay, now
plastic
see, this
sheeting.
part was not there.
Right, okay, so you
Yeah.
had like a kind of shed on the
But there
wooden
was
one?
like sort of a lean-to
Lean-to?
type thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and so before that, we think there was another brick building which was originally used as the kitchen,
Okay.
and that was removed.
So it wasn't this one.
Wasn't that one? That's
Okay.
what we think.
So what was this used for?
Don't know.
Okay.
We're not quite there yet.
Yeah, okay.
So in the 1798 records, it records having this building and then the kitchen behind it.
Right.
And so what we found evidence so far from the foundation is that, yeah, the building was there. And it came out to see where the big piles start? That's kind of where the old building used to go.
Oh, okay.
And so what we dug all through here, and I saw in the photograph of you as a young girl, there was a really long building in the background
That
with
was a
windows.
chicken house.
That was the chicken house,
Yes.
and it had the window
Right here.
going across here.
Right,
Okay.
okay. And then there was a big barn next to that.
Okay.
The barn that was taken down while I was here.
Okay. So,
And then beyond, on this road,
yeah.
there was a stable. I had a pony,
Okay.
and that's where we kept the pony.
So the stable was on the other side of
Across
the.
the,
Across
yeah,
the. Okay.
Yeah.
Because the other thing I found is we found evidence for an old. The fence line used to go from the corner of this building, right corner right there, that way.
Yeah.
And then we found evidence that there was maybe an older building at the other end of the fence, but it might have been a little bit before your time.
I don't remember that.
No, okay, so that may have been from the 1700s by
Okay,
the look of it,
okay.
early 1800s, something like
Right.
that. But so I wanted to see when that kind of disappeared. And,
Right, yeah.
the other thing we were doing was digging by the side of the house here, looking for evidence of a porch. I think that was probably long gone before.
I don't remember.
You don't, yeah,
Uh-uh.
okay.
No.
Zach. So Zach is our crew chief. He did most of the digging. I'm just doing the talking. That's the person who got his arms, hands, and knees dirty doing the digging. Did you have specific questions based on the archaeology that you saw while you were here?
No, yeah, it really would be about the porch. Yeah, that's a curious outbuilding right there. We've gotten, even in our STPs, we've gotten multiple features of post holes in this general area.
Yes. So were there used to be any fences in this area, or was it just
No,
those
there
buildings?
was a fence around the house.
Just went
over
around.
there.
Okay. And did that enclose the front garden as well? The front yard as
There
well?
were a lot of rock gardens
Okay.
and a lot of terraced gardens as you
Okay.
went down to the graveyard.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that the rocks were still there. You could see.
My mother kept care of those.
Oh, okay. So that went away in.
Yeah, eventually it was too much for her.
Right.
Yeah.
And was that brick or rock or
Just rocks
Just
that
rocks?
they collected off of the farm.
Oh, really? And they
Yeah.
just put them there?
Yeah,
Because we did we had some ground penetrating radar, and we looked at it, and
Yeah.
it gave some return that thought that there may be rocks
Right,
there. So that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's most of the questions we had based on the archaeology, because I think the problem I've got is most of the archaeology we're finding is a long time before your time. It's the 1700s,
Yeah.
the early 1800s.
That predates me.
Yeah. So I think that's main questions I had was really how this was laid out, and I
Yeah,
think you've
right,
answered
yeah.
that for me. Oh, we had one more question. So this may be before your time too, but right here we found evidence with our ground penetrating radar that there used to be a building next to the well, and it's quite deep, and so it was long gone.
Don't remember that.
Okay.
No.
I think what happened is before they had refrigeration, they would put their ice and store their ice
Exactly,
in
yeah.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why it's so deep.
Yeah.
But probably they didn't really have the need for that, so yeah,
Right.
they filled it in. Well, one more question. I keep coming to me. So the driveway here, that's much more deeply cut than it was when you were living here.
No, it was always
It was
there.
always quite
and
deep.
My mother had poplar trees that lined it all the way
Okay,
up. Yeah.
and it's the same
Yeah,
location.
Same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
And then where the drive is going to be down
Yeah.
to the house,
yeah.
she had peonies that grown
Okay.
each side of there, and
Oh.
I have them at my house now.
Just from the same
Yeah,
ones?
same
That's
peonies.
pretty cool. And it's all the same location. It hasn't moved. Maybe the driveway got a bit bigger or something, but
Yeah,
that's
it's same thing.
same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. That's really helpful. Thank you.
When the hem-
I'm sorry, the mausoleum was still standing. Was there a mausoleum in the cemetery?
I can't hear you.
Was there a mausoleum in the cemetery?
No,
No standing structure?
no.
No.
The
No,
one
it's-
grave, you know, the one
Yeah.
man didn't want to be buried on, and his grave was above the ground, and there was the little iron door that's disappeared, unfortunately. But all of his bones were in this door, and when I had parties, the boys would take the skull, put on a broomstick, and chase the girls. So that disappeared. Yeah, that disappeared. Yeah.
So the graveyard had fallen into disrepair by the time
Yeah.
your family lived here?
Oh yeah.
Did the Hemsleys visit it much, or had?
Well, Mr. William Hemsley, Stephen's brother, is the one that did the graveyard.
Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, when you were living here as a child,
Oh,
did the family come out to?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, this is, called Foreman's Landing Road, and originally when Cloverfields was first built, part of the appeal was there was a ship's landing down there.
That's right.
Was the landing still in operation during
Not
your
while I was
time?
here. No. They used to bring boats in with wheat and so forth. And there was a granary down there, but it was before my time.
Right.
That's interesting.
But there was an active porch?
What?
Or, I'm sorry, an active dock that they were using?
Yeah. There's a landing down there, and I think.
Yeah, and a lot of people would just come down and go fishing there, and then we finally got the road closed. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, we finally got the road closed.
Because did the other road? There was another road that led out from, or a track which led from here down to the old
No,
landing.
you go by.
You go straight behind
Yeah,
it.
and then make a left, and then
Okay.
it went back in there.
Okay, and it went that way.
Yeah, the boys can tell you about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And some of the really old photos, I think, one that you provided me, if you look at the chimney, it was much taller. So, do you remember
Don't remember
why
that
that
either.
had to come down?
No.
So that was probably before your
Don't
time
remember
as
that.
well.
No.
Well, it's beginning to rain on you, Mrs. Hemsley, Mrs. Pippen. Maybe we should
Yeah,
take
I
this
wonder
inside.
if we should take
and,
this inside.
Yeah, we probably only have a few more questions, but I don't want you to get. Yeah, because I'd like to ask you what the names of the rooms
You
were.
want your chair inside or a cushion?
It's an outdoor chair.
In 1925. That's him, right out here.
My dog's name was Beppo.
That's
I don't know where they got that from.
Oh, that's interesting. That gives good detail on the father and his mother.
So this is actually the radar. So when we did the radar out there, so this is obviously the front. In front of the house, we found this evidence for maybe a fountain or a circular
Drive?
Yeah, so the drive came up here,
There, yeah, and then there was a stepping stone. That's
yeah,
still there.
stepping stones around back
So
here.
we assume it was a
Yeah,
circular drive.
circular, and that was the middle. And was there anything over? We have a similar kind of pattern out here. Was there anything out here? Was it just trees?
No, this would have been. Let's see. This is the
That's
front.
front, yeah.
All right. Well, this would be where the rock gardens
I see the
were.
rock gardens are
Yeah.
here, and then
Yeah,
down
and then the
into
graveyard was
here.
down
Oh, yeah,
there.
so graveyard's all the way across
Right,
here.
yeah.
So then rock gardens here.
Yeah.
And this is the ridge, which goes off from the ones.
Right, yeah.
Was there rock gardens on
Right.
there?
There were lots of
Ah,
gardens.
they're all over.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. I think this is. So this is the thing I was talking about. So here's the well.
Okay.
And then this is the really deep basement kind of area we found.
Oh,
under
it
the-
is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then down here, we've got some buildings. This may have been the outhouse, or maybe this was the outhouse.
Well, that could have been.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's very square. I think
Right.
that looks like it's quite a
More like,
good.
yeah.
This is really useful.
And this would have been that where the pony was.
Yeah, so the pony is here,
Yeah.
and then there was the barn over here.
Up here,
Up here, okay.
there was a big house up here where people lived.
Ah, yes, I think I've seen that on the photograph.
Yeah, she has it over here.
Yeah, okay, so that's where they've cleared that area now. There's
Right,
nothing
yeah,
up there,
yeah.
This is really great, thank you. And so this is what I was talking about. So the fence used to come out in a line from just behind us,
Right.
going across to,
And it went all the way up here.
and then, okay, so it kind of followed it all the way
True,
around.
right.
Okay. And there was, on the other side was a metal fence, is that right? Or is it, no, it was
No,
just a
just
wooden,
that wooden
fence.
fence.
Okay.
So I think you've probably
And was
seen
this
before.
the access track to the front of the driveway?
Right.
Was that in use when you were younger, or
No.
no? It was
No.
always
No.
we just come down.
There were 2 trees that were planted right here, and you would drive through, but we
Through-
never did.
Right, but you
No.
could do.
Yeah.
Okay.
We didn't have enough rain. we needed
And
a
did
little
people
more.
used to cut across this part of the garden?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Oh yes.
Okay.
They still do. I
Right.
think.
Yeah. Because I could see it. Like
Yeah, they
it's.
still do.
That's really.
Well, Jim had trees put down there.
Yes,
Yeah.
to stop them from
Yeah.
doing it. Yeah. Well, I think there's a most, and there was a big oil tank to the one side.
Oh
I
yeah.
think.
We had
Okay.
an oil front. Well, first it was coal,
Okay.
and I remember us going down there shoveling that coal in.
That's
Then my mother
okay.
had it converted to oil.
Oil because it's much easier and cleaner. And,
Right, yeah.
Yeah, we could still see some of the coal in the
Is
basement.
Is the furnace still there? Or
No,
is it gone?
it's gone. Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
that's been removed. Yeah, I think we got everything from here. So
Okay.
yeah, that's really really useful. Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, we dig things up, but we don't know what they mean
Here's
sometimes.
that picture.
When
Sherry, do you want to sit here, or you guys can talk?
I guess back in the Hemsley's days before your family bought it, that they had, a lot of slaves and then tenant farmers. When you were young and prowling around, do you remember any old remains of old servants' quarters or houses?
Actually, I told you the black people lived above the kitchen. That's where they lived. And then up there at the barn, as you came in, there were a very large house that some of the people that tilled the ground lived there.
So they were tenant farmers?
Correct. Mm.
But there were no old quarters from
No,
the
no.
from way back when.
No.
Okay, so they were long gone. I was also wondering, like the downstairs room, the room with the fancy carving. What was that? Your parlor, or your dining
We
room?
called it the parlor. I gave you a picture of my mother sitting there, didn't I?
You did, and
Do you have it, Sally?
Excuse me.
Picture of mother sitting. You
Do
got it with
know
you?
About what year that
That's
was?
it. That's it. Yeah.
Because we're trying to date those photographs. The website only says after 1930s, and we know that because the shed that your mom built
Yeah.
was already there. So do you know about how old she was in this photo?
No.
No.
I thought she looked to be in her 80s.
I would say she would be in her 80s. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That was the first one I'd ever seen the face before we went down there. Really good.
And what did you use the room across the hall for? The one opposite the parlor?
That was the bedroom, and that's where I was born.
Oh, okay. So that was.
All of her children were born in that room.
Okay. Up in the attic, we were noticing there's like a lot of soot in some of the rooms, like it was used for smoking. Did that predate your?
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I remember the 2 rooms where there are no windows and they're changed. They claim that's where they kept slaves at one point, but that's before my time.
Right. That's interesting up there. A lot of really old petitions and things, but it. I guess one of the walls, had a count of hams and things, so we were wondering if it had been used for
We
storing
probably
meat.
hung hams up there, don't you think? But yet they had a meat house. They had a meat house, so why would they have used that?
I really don't know
Yeah.
because you don't usually be keeping your hams
Yeah.
in the attic when you have a perfectly good meat house. The cornice out front over the porch. Was that done when your family lived here? That one photo you gave me showed this old Medillion cornice. It had all these big blocks underneath of it. And there's this old gentleman.
Smartly dressed.
Yes, this fellow. If you look at the roof line
Oh, okay, that. It's still there?
underneath.
I
the
was going to
modest
say,
fellow,
I
was
don't
wondering
remember
if-
that. No, and that I don't know who this man is here.
Okay.
Don't have a clue.
He's very dapper looking.
But this is where they think those pillars were, correct?
That's one theory. There was a newspaper article that talked about
Right.
a 2-story
Yeah.
colonnaded porch, and as I said, there was evidence they found last week, but this is originally a door.
The
that you
door
could
there,
walk out.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's, anyone else have any?
You better get inside, it's raining.
I'm under here.
And I guess you really, this was probably before your time too.
Yeah, that was before me.
Yeah.
And did I give you one of the present one now?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, this is before me.
The photos you gave us were so helpful.
Okay.
I mean, really was so
Good.
informative. And your nieces brought some out. We're going to go take a look at and make some copies quickly. But I think that's all. That's all I
Okay.
need from you.
When you were a youngster here, was it a bustle of activity? A lot of things going on.
Just farming activity, really. Yeah, nothing. No, and I used to play with the neighbors that lived down the road. And then my mother, one of the colored ladies they worked for, had a daughter, and I played with her. That's the only playmates I ever had.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And at those days, you didn't go out to eat dinner. You stayed on the farm. Yep.
That's right.
So,
What would you guys play?
right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what would you play?
Oh, we played school all the time. We were teachers and, that type of thing. And then we had balls we play and, yeah. Not like it is today.
I was gonna say anything but a video game, right?
Yeah, not like it is today. You had to use your imagination.
I grew up.
And-
I grew up like that. We didn't have this when I was a kid.
Yeah,
either, that's right.
dodgeball, remember? Do you ever
Playing
play
outside.
dodgeball?
Yes,
Oh,
building
yeah.
tree forts and doing
Oh,
all
yeah.
that. Yes.
Yeah, you just did your own fun. We read a lot, had books, we
They
read.
call that working with your hands these days. We called it playing.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This is really.
Well, I
really
hope I've been
wonderful.
helpful to you.
You've been
Very
extremely helpful.
Oh, good.
You really, really have. I'm going to pop in here and take a look at the pictures that your niece brought.
Okay. In Centerville,
Bill.
what's his last
Malasky.
name? Yeah. He has quite a collection of arrowheads that he got out here in the fields.
Just around here.
Yeah,
And,
right, yeah.
I believe that.
Yeah.
But you found a bunch of them, haven't you?
No,
No?
I've
That's
found barely
surprising.
any.
That's because
prehistoric
Bill
artifacts.
found them all.
I think
He
he
spent
did.
a lot of time here.
Yeah, he really
A lot of
did.
time.
Yeah.
Now you know who has them.
I found one prehistoric flake. So somebody was making a tool and they napped it and it fell into the builder's trench of the old kitchen. Over
Oh,
there.
really?
So that was the only little piece that I found.
Was it a color on it or what?
It was a white quartz.
Okay.
Some quartz. It's really nice.
No blue and white or anything? No,
nothing like
okay.
that. Yeah.
What would be the significance of the blue and white?
Well, that was an old china set years ago.
Oh,
And that rose medallion, too. Was that? I guess that was later, though.
Oh.
That's the green, yeah. Sally's got an umbrella.
Well, if we're talking about ceramics, we're finding a lot of different.
Ceramics?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that they made, yeah.
Yeah, we like some of the older ceramics is a blue and white dot and paper
Okay,
stoneware that we're finding.
Right,
And
okay.
that's dating to the 18th century.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Any crocs or anything like that?
Crocs, yes, yeah, we're finding all that. So right behind the kitchen area is a huge midden. It's a pretty well preserved midden. It's pretty deep too, and we're finding Crocs and chamber
yeah,
pots
okay.
and all sorts of things in there. But actually, some of the pieces that we're getting are pretty complete. So just a couple cracks here and there,
Oh,
just
really?
enough for them to throw it out.
Yeah.
But that's where you're going to find all your big pieces of ceramics are
Oh, okay.
in that midden behind the kitchen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Want to tell her what a mitten is?
Oh, just a trash pit. And you throw all
Yeah.
your things.
Yeah.
And there's a pretty extensive shell midden right there too, just all over
Well,
there.
when my mother lived here, the
Mhm.
trash went down in the woods, I can tell you that.
So you take it all the way down to the wood line?
Down to the woods.
Is it
Yep.
somebody's chore to go do that?
And that's a field trip.
Right.
Yep.
Literally.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you lose anything in the well?
No, no.
Did you ever go down and do any fishing? down
I
there?
didn't, but the family did.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, these boys now, there's a pond back there now. These kids go back there and fish all the time, don't you?
Yeah, well, in the Wye River splits here, of course.
Yeah.
Both
Right.
sides. You can catch perch
Yeah.
early. in March and early April. White perch that
Yeah.
come up. Catfish.
Oh yeah, catfish. My mother made catfish pie.
I love catfish.
Do you?
I do. I think it's so
Yeah,
good.
she would have a crust on it. I remember that.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't leave.
Who caught the catfish for the
I
pie?
guess the people that lived here, the colored people, I guess, 'cause I'm sure they fished a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And you had family gardens too, little small gardens.
Right back here was the big garden.
Oh, okay.
I had to work there, pick up, and we canned a lot. I think the shells probably aren't in the basement now, but there were shells, and that's where we kept all the canned things. You know,
Wow.
we canned everything we had.
What was so? What different types of vegetables and fruit did you?
Well, of course, tomatoes, and we made our own tomato juice. I remember capping those bottles.
Oh my goodness, I've done that before.
Oh yeah,
That's so much work.
yeah. And then the pork, of course, we had a lot of hogs, and Mother would do the pork. That was good. That was the tenderloin of the pork that she canned, and it was delicious. Yeah. So in the winter, you lived off of what was in your basement at the canned goods.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Were you also growing melons and other things
In
like that?
the garden, yeah, we
Yeah.
had melons, cantaloupes, watermelons.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good stuff.
Lima beans. We had a lot of lima beans.
A lot of lime. With every meal, right?
Almost.
Good for you.
Yeah.
So where was the garden exactly?
Right back here.
Just right on the other side of the house?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
It's part of the field now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It used to
I
be
got
right
that.
next to where it falls off.
Yes.
Yeah.
It had to be a pretty good sized garden.
Oh, it was large. Yeah, very large. A lot of corn that we, yeah. So yeah, it was good.
Was it hand tilled or did you have a horse or a tractor to
They had
till
a
it?
horse or tractor. I remember horses behind plows here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you plowed it up and did your own work. Yeah.
Wow.
And I remember when they'd go out in the cornfield, you know, with a sled, and you'd sit
Then-
in that sled and then pull out some of the corn.
Thin the corn.
Yeah,
It was
I
too
remember
thick.
that.
You ride along, mule would ride along, he'd
Exactly.
whack it,
Yeah,
keep on going, and you know, if you had two close together, you take one out because
Yeah.
too thick wouldn't make a nice ear.
Right. But that was all feed corn, right? That wasn't
yeah, that
Silver
was
Queen.
feed, that was
right.
feed corn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
century stuff. They don't have any business making this in the 19th century. But in the 18th century, I mean, we took it off, and the wallpaper underneath it is clearly 19th century wallpaper.
Was it a floral design or?
It's actually a version of what they call a vermicelli. It's just this kind of squiggly pattern.
Oh, yeah.
And what I think is really great about the wallpaper is that it's white on white. And you know, you can imagine a designer today doing white on white.
Right, yeah.
But we're talking about a designer in 1830, not today, that's doing this. And we haven't yet found the source of that wallpaper, but we've had our paint analysts have taken microscopic fragments from the wallpaper and photographs to figure out what it's made of and maybe help us with the pattern to figure out
So
where
what
it's
color
made.
was the paint?
Paint in the room? Well, which period? So that's another extraordinary thing that we found, taking the paneling off. We found the original door that led from this room into the stair hall was right behind you.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was closed up in the 1760s. But on that door jamb, you could see the original paint, and it was a red-brown, kind of like what we would think of as barn red today.
Right, yeah.
But in 1705, that was the hottest thing going, red-brown.
Oh, okay, red.
People just weren't painting buildings, and when they did, they painted red-brown.
Yeah.
So it was first painted red-brown. The second thing we found is, you see those three boards over there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so John discovered that when we took it off. And 1760s plaster, but you could see pieces of the original plaster on the walls up in here. And then this is the original lintel for the front door. And that, the door frame is original from 1705. that big heavy back band is original, but the transom over it was added in the 1760s.
Done later.
And so they cut through this lintel in order to install the transom when they did that in 1760. This ended up being kind of interesting too. These are the original studs. This is the original partition. So that room was the large room originally. The other side of the passage wall wasn't there. And then when they went to put the wainscoting in the 1760s, they put this blocking in. I'm not quite sure why, but this is cut up earlier trim from the house that has some of that red-brown paint on it. Some of it may be baseboard with black paint on it, but there's a lot of, you can see the bead kind of protruding from some of this stuff. So there's a lot of earlier stuff cut up and reused.
I want to tell you something. The door that goes into the other room,
Right.
it matches this, but it's not the original door.
So what happened to the original door?
Apparently, the people rented it, took the door off, from what I've been told. And I had a friend that does
That made
woodwork,
that door.
and he made it for me.
Got it.
But
Huh.
it's not the
Yeah.
original, but
Huh.
this is. He copied this.
Yeah. Oh, very good.
Yeah.
He did a good job.
I guess the other interesting fact, it's not in this room, but you know, upstairs in the attic, there's two low rooms that have all the smoke blackening in it. The doors that lead into those rooms might have been the original doors, either from this floor
Oh, really?
or from the second floor.
Oh.
And they look like first period stuff to me. I was a little shocked when the paint analyst sampled them. One side of the doors has the red-brown paint as we would expect. The other side seems to have a blue paint on it. And if it's Prussian blue, which it almost certainly has to be, Prussian blue isn't even invented until the 17 teens. It doesn't
Some woman wanted to change things.
I'm guessing, but it seems to be the bottom coat of paint. So I don't know if it's possible that one side of the doors weren't painted and the other side were painted red, or I may be wrong, they may be 1727 doors instead of the, so that'll be real interesting to work at. But even that, the paint analyst can tell us if the door sat for a while before they painted it by how the wood is aged before the paint goes down. So we'll know that. And then the other thing is, by one of those doors, to create those smoke rooms, to make them tighter, they nailed in an 18th century bed frame part. And I mean, it's clearly a bed from this house. And the whole length is that they didn't chop it up. They took the whole length, shoved it in the crack, and nailed it in place with handmade nails.
Okay.
It's a very, very cool thing. So.
What would your mother have thought about her parlor looking like this right now?
Well, I think my mother would be delighted that you all are doing this. I'm sure she would have.
Oh, that's neat.
Don't you all, you kids, whatever. I'm sure my mother would. I'm sorry she's not here to see it, because she would have loved it. Yeah. And we are very fortunate that Mr. Hemsley wants to do this, because we could not have done it.
Well, it's you all hung on to it, and you know,
we kept it up the best we could.
You did, which is nice, because that's why we have something serious to work with now.
Right. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it makes all the difference that you lived here and kept the water out and kept a good roof on.
Yeah.
Makes all the difference in the building surviving.
I just replaced that roof myself for $35,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. But that's an investment in the future.
Yeah.
You know?
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Hemsley wants this house to be here 300 years from now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
We said, well, we'll try when we build it. We'll try to do that.
Well.
We see if we can do as those guys did in 1705.
Well, we'll see. I won't be here, and you won't either.
Yeah, we won't. So we won't know, will we?
No. Oh my.
That's right.
All right, who gets the hot seat?
Good stuff.